What's up, guys? Seth the Programmer here, and I thought today would be the day that I finally touched up on what is canon in Dragon Ball Z, Super, GT, whatever. Anything Dragon Ball related, what is canon, and I hope you enjoy the video. So I guess we should start things off by defining what canon actually means. A lot of people don't know what it really means, they just have a general gist of what they think it means. So we're going to describe what it means. The Merriam-Webster dictionary says that it is the authentic works of a writer. The Google definition of it, which is very valid as well, says it's a general law, rule, principle, or criterion by which something is judged. What they mean by this is if it's not canon, it's not really something that is judged or looked at. And, you know, urban dictionaries usually say it's another word for official material. Now, all of these are equally valid. It's all the same thing, pretty much. So, from there, I guess we can get started. There are other definitions of canon, but those are the top 3 on Google, so we're just going to go with those. Now, when being looked at the Dragon Ball Z story, many people say if it's not canon, it doesn't matter. And they usually are going with this by it's the authentic works of a writer argument. Like, the author didn't write this, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to try to blow that out of the water as well, because it's not true. Just because it's not canon in terms of being written by the author does not mean it's, like, doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't exist. And there are other forms of canon as well, like things that can be judged, like Google said. Like, the movies aren't written by the author, but maybe they can be judged by the Dragon Ball story, right? They're never main canon to the storyline, but they can have their own canon within the place of the Dragon Ball universe, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to go into detail about that as well. Okay, so to describe what is actually canon in the series, what most people consider canon, what's considered canon within the Dragon Ball series is literally only the manga and Dragon Ball Super, because those are the only things, you know, most people know is worked on by the author. However, what they don't realize is that a lot of things are worked on by the author. So now let's talk about the Dragon Ball anime, you know, for Dragon Ball Z, the most popular of them. You know, the anime which has Yamcha versus Raccoon, or Goku and Piccolo driving a car is a really great one. So, is that canon? I mean, it's not worked on by the author, but is it an official work by the author? Has the author ever worked on the anime? Is it something that can be judged for the series? Does it fall under canon definition? And I'm going to say it right now. Yes, it does. The Dragon Ball anime is canon. And this is because the author himself states that Dragon Ball as a whole is the anime and the manga, which means he accepts that the anime is part of Dragon Ball. He never says, oh, well, I look at the Dragon Ball anime as something, you know, of a different dimension or a side story. No, he says it's part of the main Dragon Ball continuum, that the anime is canon to Dragon Ball. He also, this is very important, a lot of people don't know this, but he also worked on the anime many times. The entire Otherworld tournament was worked on by him. Gregory and Bubbles, you know, characters that are completely, you know, non-canon by, you know, a stingy fan, are in Dragon Ball Super, a canon series. Why are these non-canon anime characters all of a sudden appearing in canon material without any description of who they are? This is because the anime was already canon to begin with, and the author already agrees with this point. Now, this means a lot of things. Every piece of the anime is canon. I can, you know, if something in the anime contradicts the main story, I can see you arguing like, I don't think this really belongs in the story, and I can respect that. But to say that the entire anime does not matter to the series, even though the author pretty much says that it's one and the same with the manga, is a logical fallacy. Alright, now we're going to move on to the movies. The movies are usually looked at as non-canon, which makes sense because they don't belong in the main storyline. However, let's look at what Toriyama says about them. In an interview, the Daizenshu 6 interview about movies, he says, "What is your personal stance on Dragon Ball's theatrical film Sensei?" And Toriyama responds, "I take the movies as stories in a different dimension from the main story of the comic. I'm entirely just an audience for them." Now, this means that he does not consider the movies as part of the main story. He considers them a different dimension from the main story. Now, does this mean they're non-canon? Well, it does mean that they're non-canon to the main story, but to Dragon Ball as a whole, it means something different. Basically, what's being stated is that the movies are part of a different dimension in Dragon Ball, which means, yes, those characters can happen inside the series, but they have not happened in the main series, if that makes sense. So, they're not canon to the main story, but they're canon to Dragon Ball. Alright, now we're going to go on to Dragon Ball GT. Dragon Ball GT, the most hated series to come out of Dragon Ball. Is it canon? Well, once again, just like the movies, it's a possibility to exist within the series. However, it is not canon to the main story. It is canon to Dragon Ball, just like the movies, but it is not canon to the main story. It's basically a different dimension within the series. It's a different... You know how Trunks' timeline is basically, the main timeline, but with slight differences? Trunks' timeline is kind of how the movies in Dragon Ball GT are to the main series. It's kind of like the same timeline, just with slight differences. So it can be judged, it just can't be judged as a connection to the main story and, past that. It should also be noted that Dragon Ball GT as a main story argument, nobody in Dragon Ball GT is a god, and we know that Super is 100% canon to the series. Speaking of Super, a lot of people were asking questions like, hey, is which one's canon, the Dragon Ball Super manga or the Dragon Ball Super anime? The Dragon Ball Super anime is what we mainly look at for feats and, what is considered canon. It is the main source material. However, the Dragon Ball manga can be looked at from, a canon perspective. Some people look at it as merely an adaptation, a different way to, read the story. It's not necessarily non-canon or anything of the sort. It's sort of just like a different telling of the story, because both of them are worked on by Toriyama closely, so you can't really say one's non-canon. But most people use the anime. If that's what you're wondering, the community usually uses the anime and says the anime is above the manga. However, the manga can be used. Anyways, guys, I hope that answered all your questions. I hope you learned something, and till next time.